Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy! Hi everyone, my name is Karen Cheong and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. Today we're going to be talking about what is beyond abundance. In our culture, when we talk about abundance, it's usually about financial abundance or sometimes about health. Today, we're going to discuss what true abundance is, how to achieve it, and why it's likely not what you think it is. Let's jump right in. Dennis?
Abundance. Now, Karen, this is one of my favorite subjects, abundance. I love abundance in all different areas of my life. I just love abundance.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges is there's obstacles. And how do you overcome those obstacles to actually experience and live in that state of abundance?
That's a good question. I think that for most people today, one of the things they strive hardest for is to have or experience abundance. Because, it really doesn't... I'm going to answer your question in two parts. So the first is, you can have a lot of material abundance. You can actually have a lot of it and not feel abundant. Okay, so I just want to distinguish that. Yep. Okay, because I have worked with different clients who have a lot of material abundance and feel like they have nothing. So they operate out of scarcity because they have all these scarcity patterns running through them, or it's usually low self-worth patterns running through them, and they don't feel like they are worthy of experiencing that abundance, and so they live as if they have nothing or not very much. So I'm just saying, just because you have a lot materially doesn't mean you feel abundant. I just want to distinguish that. Yeah. And then the other challenge, so to answer your question of like, how do people who don't have material abundance, how do they experience abundance? So it all comes down to frequency, right? Always. So a couple of things are happening on spirit level. One is that the person often is not vibrating at the same level as abundance. So here's abundance vibrating here, and the person's here vibrating. And it doesn't matter how much they want this, they can't have it because they're not even the same. It's like two different worlds. Yeah. They're not even colliding. They're not even overlapping whatsoever. Yeah. And the ironic twist of fate, or the kind of divine joke, is the more you yearn for abundance when you don't have it, the more you polarize away from it and you push it external to yourself, and then you can't achieve it. So it's almost like the more we grasp for it, whatever it is, whether it's abundance, intimate partnership, I don't know, whatever it is that you're seeking, you push it outside because you want it so badly. Yeah. You actually do this as opposed to pulling it into you, because you've made it something that you can't have. Like this thing that you yearn for, it's not achievable. It's outside of yourself. So that's another issue. And then there's oftentimes a lot of frequency distortions between allowing abundance to be present in their lives. So whether it be non-deserving, or lots of times it's lineage patterns around abundance. Lots of lineage patterns of struggle, hardship. You're not allowed to have ease. If you experience abundance, then you're a bad person, or you are a corrupt person, or you had to do something evil in order to get abundance, or whatever it is. Like, those are a lot of lineage patterns and distortions, a lot of religious conditioning, a lot of cultural conditioning. So you have all this stuff between you and abundance because it's all these distortion patterns. So with all those things running, abundance can't be present when those patterns are running. It just can't. So you have to clear those distortion patterns in order to have abundance, right? In order to be able to have it. And like I said, be neutral on it, because if we yearn for it, then we push it out ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So ironically, as I said, that non-attaching to abundance allows for it to come in. Yeah. Going back to the frequency distortions, one of the challenges that a lot of people have is being able to receive. So they're okay with giving. They're okay with giving, but receiving, different story. There's a lot of distortion around receiving.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Oh, that was too easy. No, can't have that. It was too easy. No. And then also sometimes people have victims, so a victim frequency, so they feel entitled to everything. So it's kind of this weird, twisted distortion that happens. And so in that entitlement, they kind of alienate abundance as well. So it's odd. So all these different patterns running, keeping us from abundance. And then on top of that is the bringing it into form. So how do you bring it into your reality? How do you have that experience? And that is about creation manifestation, which we talk about in a different segment. So to stay tuned for that. And also, that's also going to be another masterclass that I give, either live or online. You can have either one or attend one or the other, but that's about bringing abundance into form, physical form. So again, this is distinct from the experience of abundance, right? So manifestation, creation is the physical appearance of it.
Yep.
And then there's the experience of the feeling sense of abundance. Because a lot of us actually have a lot of abundance around us. Most of us, I'm not saying everybody watching this, but most of us have a certain level of abundance, but we kind of take it for granted. We kind of like don't even really see it anymore. We're all striving for the thing that we want outside ourselves, but we don't experience and have gratitude for what we have.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. What you were talking about is when we just cling so hard to something.
Yeah.
I gotta have this.
Yeah.
Whether it's a person or a job or a car, or I gotta have that house. That's my house. You know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have experienced when we finally surrender and say, well, I guess if it's meant to be. And then all of a sudden it shows up. And it's like, you know, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like in that neutrality, when you don't care whether or not you get it, then ironically, that's when it appears. And all of this, again, comes down to the experiencing of abundance has to do with our own completeness. Our own sense of, it always comes back to this, it really does, right? The sense of completeness, of wholeness, of not needing the external, because all that stuff is a seeking on the external. What happens is that as we clear all these distortion patterns and our frequency rises, right? So we've removed all these frequency distortion patterns. Our own frequencies are getting higher and clearer. What happens is we have this growing sense of completeness. It just happens as a natural consequence. You don't have to do anything. It just happens. And then we don't need the external validation, the external abundance. And we don't desire it. And again, cosmic joke, that's when it starts to appear. And, you know, as we rise, one of the tests as you rise is that it's funny, it's like your needs get met. You don't really know how. It's like you need the whatever to have the whatnot. The money comes in some way, and it may not be exactly what you think, but somehow it's like your spirit kind of rewards you as you ascend, you know, gives you a gift of whatever you need of this abundance. So, you know, in terms of material things, and you don't even really have to, it just kind of surprisingly shows up. So that's what I would say. That's when you experience abundance and you don't feel empty, because you can, again, like I said before, you can have a lot of money and feel totally empty and not appreciate it at all, right? And as you rise in frequency and you're complete, then the abundance becomes very pleasurable and very fun, because you're not as attached to it. It's not heavy. It's not this thing that means that you've achieved something and like, oh my God, I've been striving for this thing. It's not about that. It's just like, oh, this has showed up. Wow, this is awesome. Like I really get to experience this. This is amazing, right? I get to go to this plane ride to have a picnic lunch on this like random mountaintop, whatever. How cool is that? Right? And again, and the other thing I'm going to mention is abundance is about access. It's not about ownership. I just want to make that clear. It's access to an experience. So ownership, we all in our culture are like, we have to own the thing. We have to own the house. We have to own the car. We have to own the yacht. We have to own the little, you know, all these things, right? And then we're abundant. What if you got just experience? I mean, do you have to own the thing to have the enrichment of the experience? No. I mean, if you have a friend who has a plane who will fly you to the, you know, wherever awesome place it is to go picnic, great. You don't have to own the plane to have the enrichment of the experience or the experience of that abundance of that experience. You have access to it. So it's about access to, because really, what do you want money for? Really, most people will say it's a feeling or the experience.
Security.
Yep, security. Yep, to some degree. And then when you start to think about it as options, as freedom, right? As once your need of security is met, then it's about just, right? You're having the experience of something or the feeling of it. So it's not necessarily about ownership. Yes, I just wanted to distinguish that.
And I think a lot of corporations are starting to realize that, because, you know, it used to be that they would offer you the product. And now they've gone to that next level and said, okay, maybe you don't need to own this product. You could rent the product, or you could just have access to the product, or whatever that is, so that you can have the experience.
Well, it's like all those car share programs, like I think it's called Tour or whatever, where people have, you know, lovely high-end cars, and then you can just rent them. It's someone's personal vehicle, right? And you just rent them for the day. And my sister actually was in Las Vegas recently with her husband, and they rented a Porsche, right? And they're like bombing around town in the Porsche. They don't need to have the fun of that experience. They don't need to own that car. They need to drive around the thing for a weekend and think it's awesome, right? And then they have the experience. So yeah.
So this is really opening up the world for a lot of people about this abundance. And I think the reason it's exciting is to go back, you know, you mentioned that we have these patterns. And we may not even be the person that originated these patterns. You know, it's a scarcity, you know, you just don't go beyond this, you know. And there's a budget, and there's, you know, there's a way of life, and you need to accept that. That's the way the world is. And so we have these patterns that have been trickled down wherever they came from. And I think what's exciting is you're telling me I don't have to live here.
No.
I don't have to be there.
No.
And so...
And your children don't have to either.
Yeah. And oh boy, that's a big one. And so what I was thinking about is with your, you know, with the frequency work that you offer, the GFCs, you know, because every conversation we seem to have, patterns, distortions, frequencies.
That's what,
And so I'm excited about kind of, you know, moving up through this and really opening up my world. And so the GFC would be one of the keys to success.
Yeah, totally. Totally. GFCs, listening to GFCs, the more frequency work you can do, the better it is. So whether it's a GFC or an individual session or a live event, it doesn't matter. The more clearing you can do, the faster it gets. And it's just, it's back to my little duct tape analogy, right? So you're this sphere of individuated pure source energy spinning at your individual rate, and you have all these layers of duct tape around you. And as the duct tape comes off, the sphere starts to spin because it's not as heavy anymore. It's not burdened by the duct tape. So now it gets to spin faster, and then the duct tape comes off faster. So it wants to clear we want to clear ourselves. It's not like we're like, yay, this is awesome, we're unburdened. You know what I mean? We want to get rid of it. So it's really cool because this is self-perpetuating acceleration.
So that would be probably the simplest, easiest way for me to get started.
And the most affordable is a GFC for sure.
Exactly.
And there's one at the end of this for free. So that's like definitely the easiest one. And then if you look on my website, there are more. And then if you want to do deep dives, which is a series of 3, you can do that. Live events, personal sessions.
Very good. Abundance. I love it.
I love it. I mean, how can you not love it? It's actually our natural state. So when you get to, and what I will say is, as we get to this, removing all these distortion patterns, around getting rid of the duct tape, what happens is now the sphere becomes clear. And ultimately, if we get to this point where we clear almost all of them, if not all of them, right, where we have this connection now to pure source that's unfettered or unbound by these filters, you have what I call spherical luminosity and also spherical abundance. It can't be any other way. If you remove, you cannot exist in any other way other than to have, it's your birth. I mean, you're in pure source in all directions, infinitely around you. Of course your experience is going to be abundant. It cannot be any other way than that. So that's part of the amazingness of this. And the funny thing is, as we experience a spherical luminosity, it just is the way it is, and we're not attached to it, but it just is. But it's without that like needy clinginess. It's just this wonderful, glorious, magnificent experience.
So to think that that's part of our nature, and that's part of our true essence. And so
it's our natural state.
So the opportunity during this lifetime is discovery, and just moving forward, moving upward, and just allowing ourselves to really move into that unknown. Because I've never been there before. It's like wow, and then wow. And so
discovery, transformation, acceleration, awakening. It's all those things.
Wow.
All those things.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Karen.
Thank you.
Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to pure source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group, and each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own. Welcome everyone. This is the group frequency calibration for Beyond Abundance. So let's begin by taking 3 deep breaths into your heart space, please. So on your inhale, please hold your inhaled breath by at least 3 seconds. And after you've exhaled all the air out of your lungs, please hold out your exhaled breath for 3 seconds as well. And on your second breath, whenever you arrive here, please inhale and hold your breath for at least 2 seconds longer than you did your previous breath, whatever that length of time was. And when you're ready, on your own time, you don't have to follow the sound of my voice, you can please exhale all the air out of your lungs and hold out your exhaled breath for a similar length of time, so 2 seconds longer than you did your previous breath. And on your third breath, whenever you're ready, you're going to inhale, holding your breath in for as long as you possibly can. And when you feel like you can't hold your breath in for any longer, you're going to hold it in for a second longer. And then exhaling all the air out of your lungs, holding out your exhaled breath for as long as you possibly can. And when you feel like you can't hold out your breath any longer, please hold it out for 1 second longer. Stretching the boundaries of what is possible, both in the spirit realm and the physical. Good. And when you are complete with those 3 breaths, please begin to breathe normally in your throat space. So just bring your attention, focus, awareness to your throat space, or just imagine it as you breathe. For those of you who are new, please note that I am working on you at the group and the subgroup level. And also please note that I'll be making sounds on my end, so you probably will hear me exhale sharply, you may hear me yawn, or you may hear me hum. That's just how I move the frequency distortion patterns and the frequencies themselves at this current moment in time. So please use that as an opportunity to strengthen your own focus. Good. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for the mastermind to gel, which it just has. So now please breathe from your heart to the hollow of your throat. So bring your attention, focus, awareness to the hollow of your throat, or imagine it. The heart space to the hollow of the throat. And if it's helpful to imagine a tube connecting these 2 spots, please go ahead and do that. So let's first connect to pure source by asking the question to ourselves: how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And that question again is, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself that question, please imagine, see, sense, or feel a brilliance deep within your body that starts to expand, to grow, to radiate. Good. And for some of you, this expansion or radiation of this brilliance will become so bright that it comes out of your body and expands into the stars. And for a couple of you, all the way to the edges of the multiverses. And on my end, I am working on the back end to help you increase your natural bandwidth. And please note that this expansion was easy. There wasn't a lot of efforting involved. And if there was efforting, please note that. Good. So now, please bring your attention, focus, awareness to your belly button all the way to the hollow of your throat. Or just imagine this space between your belly button and the hollow of your throat. So the first frequency distortion pattern that we're going to remove is that of non-deserving. Okay, so even if you yearn for abundance in whatever form it is in, you don't feel you really deserve it. And for many of you, this is a lineage pattern that you're carrying forward from your lineage. So even if you have a lot of material wealth, you don't actually feel worthy of it, and you don't really enjoy it. And for those of you who don't have material wealth, you yearn for it, and you don't feel you deserve really to have it. So let's remove this. All you have to do is continue to keep your attention, focus, awareness on that space between your belly button and your throat. And this is a big one for most of you, so just breathe deeply here. So depending on the subgroup you're in, it doesn't really matter what you do or how hard you try, or how hard you work with this pattern running, abundance will always evade you. Okay? Because fundamentally you don't believe you deserve it. So yeah. Good. So now please bring your awareness to your solar plexus, which is between your belly button and the base of your sternum. And your sternum is that thick bone in the center of your chest where your ribs meet in front of your body. So between your belly button and the base of your sternum. So the next frequency distortion pattern is that of struggle and hard work. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what you do, you're always going to struggle in order to get abundance. So you're going to work very, very hard, and you're only going to get, for a large subgroup of you, a little bit of abundance. For another subgroup of you, you'll work very hard and will receive abundance, but you're going to have to sacrifice yourself a lot to get it. So depending on what subgroup you're in, you're either going to work hard and receive little reward, or you're going to work very, very hard and receive reward. So at least you're getting something, but you're going to sacrifice a lot to get it. So it sort of depends what subgroup you're in, all right? And please note that if I say something that resonates with you, it's likely you. And if I say something that you really react strongly against, like that couldn't possibly be me, then it's likely you. So please be open to that possibility. Still in the solar plexus, so please keep your attention on your solar plexus. This is the distortion pattern that it's, depending on who you are, it's either fear of or resistance to abundance. And it's because there is a belief or thought form that it comes through not only your families, but through your religions, that money is inherently evil, okay, or bad, meaning that people who have it are not good people, or they abused people in order to get it, or they were somehow, anywhere from bad to evil, depending on who you are, in order to have it. So that's not true. There are plenty of good people who have money, and there are plenty of bad people who have money, just as there are plenty of good people who are poor and plenty of bad people who are poor. Okay? So it doesn't necessarily correlate to wealth, but there's this thought form pervading most of you that this is so. So let's remove the thought form, and then the frequency distortion pattern of either fear or resistance to abundance, depending on who you are, because of the thought form. Okay? So all you have to do is keep your attention on your solar plexus. And if your mind wanders, you can use your hand, right? Just push on your solar plexus a little bit. So as a note, for some of you, this is many layers of this. So I'm going to take off the top layer. For some of you, it will clear it. And for others of you, you're going to have to listen to this again or do something further in terms of future GFCs, okay? Because depending on who you are and what you chose in this incarnation to transcend, this is more or less of a pattern that has layers to it. Okay, meaning other things have to clear before you can clear this entirely, like layers to an onion. And for many of you, this is a massive beginning. All right. So now, please bring your attention between your belly button and your heart space. So if you, again, need to imagine a tube between these two spaces, please go ahead and do that. So this next distortion pattern has to do with fear of being abundant, because the fear is that you will lose people you love, or people that you love will think less of you, like you're too big for your britches, like somehow better than them. So the fear is that, and for many of you it's an unconscious fear, that if you were to be in abundance, all of a sudden all these people who are around you now would not want to be with you for some reason. Or they would want to be with you, conversely, for the wrong reasons, okay, because you have money. So it's an interesting conundrum. Just breathe into your belly button, between your belly button and your heart space. And if you are advanced enough to be able to diffuse your focus, that you can hold these 2 points without the tube, fantastic. And if you aren't, just imagine the tube. It's fine. It will work either way. So, as a note, as you do more and more of this work, the people that you want to be with will change, simply because some people will not want to be or cannot sustain being in the frequency that you will become if you continue with this and your frequency rises. It becomes too uncomfortable for them because it mirrors to them their own distortion patterns even more. So you will find that the people that you want to hang out with and who want to hang out with you will shift. All right? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that is coming for many of you. Not for all of you, many of you. Good. So now please imagine, see, sense, feel, or become aware of your lower belly. Wherever that is for you. Okay? Your lower belly. Yeah. So this is this distortion pattern of receiving, or around receiving. Okay, so for the vast majority of you, you're okay with giving, but you're not okay with receiving. Okay, or you resist receiving because you're afraid there's going to be a hook with it, or you, depending on the subgroup you're in, you don't feel you're worthy of receiving. So there's a lot of stuff around receiving. Okay, so in order to experience abundance, in order to be in alignment with the frequency of abundance, you must first be able to receive it, or to be with it. So this is required in order for abundance to be, the frequency of abundance to be in alignment with you, or for you to be in alignment with it, more specifically. So please breathe into your lower belly. So we're going to remove this distortion pattern around receiving. And your homework is to notice how you are with receiving in the world. Can you receive a compliment by saying thank you, or do you have to belittle yourself? So if someone says, oh, that you have really, I don't know, beautiful eyes or whatnot, do you have to say, oh, yes, but my skin is terrible, or whatever? Or can you just simply say thank you? So notice if you can even receive a verbal compliment. Okay. Just notice how you are with receiving. This does not mean become entitled, that people should be serving you and that you are better than them. It simply means, can you receive? Okay. Yeah. Good. Now I'm going to remove the next distortion pattern, which is fear. So depending on the subgroup you're in, there's a small subgroup that is actually extremely afraid of receiving, because it means that they're weak, or that it's weird. It's almost like you'll be punished if you receive. And there's another subgroup of you that has fear around receiving, because if you receive, you might get stuck with whatever it is. You can always change your mind and give it away to someone else, or just to give it away. You don't have to keep it. And you can also decline if you really want to. And for some of you, you're not even quite sure how to fully receive. Okay, there's almost like this vulnerability around receiving. So depending on what subgroup you're in, and there's others, but those are the main ones. So depending on what subgroup you're in, just work on removing those distortions. All you have to do is to keep your attention on your lower belly. Good. And the next one, the next distortion pattern, has to do with pride. Okay? So this is a distortion pattern of pride with regards to abundance. So there's a lot around this. Okay? So some of you don't want to admit that you want to have money. Others of you don't want to admit that you have less than you do. Others want to prove that you have more than you really do because you feel like it's important to prove that to the world. Others of you won't receive because of pride. So pride is a funny thing. It's a funny emotion. So this all those distortion patterns, depending on who you are and what subgroup you fall in, are running. A lot of these are lineage patterns. Okay, so let's just remove these because they're not helping you to be abundant at all. So and pride certainly doesn't really get you that far. So let's just with regards to this. Okay, with regards to this. So let's remove this because it is a thing of the ego mind that we do in order to gain some kind of self-importance. So let's release these. Breathing deeply into your lower belly. Actually, please breathe from your lower belly all the way up to the base of your sternum, that whole area. Good. Excellent. So this is the beginning of your path to beyond abundance. For many of you, you will need more than this GFC because it's a deep pattern for you. If that is true for you, please keep your eye out for the deep dive that I'm going to do on abundance. Right? And if some of you, there is a group of you that won't need it. Okay? But if you do, please keep your eye out for that on my website at sphericalluminosity.com. So I'm going to leave you here for as long as you would like. And I look forward to working with you on the next GFC.